Edvard, thank you very much for joining us first of all. I'm really interested to know from you if you could please talk a little bit about where you feel that ports and terminals are at with the energy transition and what the new role for ports are going to be going forward into the future up to 2050. Lots of changes taking place at the moment. I certainly think that we're going from all of the ideas floating about to actually putting these projects in place. So, but it'd be nice to hear your perspective.
Well, thank you very much for the possibility to contribute. Indeed, there's a lot going on, but I would argue that it's something that has been going on for a very long time. We started already 25 years ago with electrifying, using onshore power supply, and the difficulty has been ever since to scale up. Same thing with the alternative fuels. We tried the bunkering of methanol already 10 years ago, but we haven't seen the upscaling yet. So the difficulty, what we see in ahead of 2050, is scaling up will be needed, and scaling up fast. But definitely the energy transition is ongoing, has been ongoing for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, what we've been hearing a lot about at the Congress already is about knowing, trying to cater for all of these options that are becoming available. It's very difficult to do that, isn't it?
Indeed.
Individual ports and terminals have all got their own markets and the customers that they're trying to serve. So can you talk a little bit about that perhaps?
Well, what we see is that the biggest challenge is knowing really who wants what, because we cannot have custom-made solutions for each and every ship owner. But today we see that ship owners ask for specific custom-made solutions for onshore power supply. They want a different type of fuel, a different type of bunkering solution, and that makes it difficult because we need to have standardized solutions so that we can easy to cater everyone.
It's really hard, isn't it? At the end of the day, ports and terminals are businesses.
True.
And the whole conference here is about kind of trying to meet those economical demands.
Exactly, and learn from each other.
Absolutely, and I think that's part of the process. What do you feel? This is a difficult question to ask you, I have to say. So, but what do you feel are the regional? Perhaps you can talk about a bit about your own experience. But what do you feel are the regional and global challenges that ports need to face in order to make the type of transitions? What are some of the hot topics?
What I would say is that the difficulty when we compare regional to global is that we have a lot of initiatives that are regional. We see the European legislation going a little bit ahead of the global legislation, and what we always say in shipping and also in ports is that we want to have global rules for global business. And we always come back to that because it's difficult to have different regional solutions, and therefore we try to work together both between European ports but also between ports globally.
And obviously there's a huge amount of difference between what ports and terminals can do both regionally, nationally, and then globally as well.
Yeah, of course.
It's and I think that's part of it. It's quite interesting to hear the different perspectives, both across Europe and then bringing together, those countries outside of Europe as well today. And
True.
Perhaps they're learning lessons from Europe as well, but perhaps they can bring their own perspective.
Well, the difficulty is that the possibilities for European ports are often better because we have better strength, we have more money, so we can actually try these solutions. But what we try is that we try pilot cases, like for onshore power supply, make sure that technology works, and then we try to get it into legislation, first on a national level, then eventually on a European level, and then hopefully eventually also on the global level.
Yeah.
But that's going to take some time, and definitely when we see ports around the world, globally outside Europe especially, they do have difficulties. There might not be enough electricity available, there might not be enough strengthening in the grid. So there's tougher challenges definitely there.
Yeah, definitely, and monetarily as well, I should think.
Definitely, which is why we talk about various ways of getting funds from the IMO with the new net zero framework coming, actually channeled towards the ports in the third world countries.
Yeah, and that absolutely makes sense, doesn't it? We focus a lot both at the Congress and in the magazine, and we talk to both the huge, larger port operations around the world, but also the smaller terminals as well, who are perhaps propping up, their own region's economy. So they're quite fundamental to what they're doing. So
we definitely see that it's more common in the more poor countries that the port authorities play a role for the community, and they put much more effort into helping the community than what we do in the European ports especially.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose in a strange way it kind of makes a lot more impact for them in their own backyards.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So with that in mind, how important do you feel is the role of ports in driving forward some of the changes that we've been talking about? Certainly in terms of the smaller parts with regards to what we're talking about with their communities and their livelihoods even, but also the large opportunities for larger ports, and especially those in Europe with regards to the energy.
Well, what we've seen is that ports have already stepped up. It used to be way back when that ports was just a small part of the transport chain. Nowadays we are at the center, and we try to look at ourselves as energy hubs and try to be the spider in the transport network. So definitely we're stepping up already, and we can do that further. So we try to look at the entire transport value chain to actually include not only the ship owners but also the cargo owners, and get everybody on board and work together. And we have a lot of interesting cases in that with specific projects, more overall projects. We have a lot of green corridors, for instance, which is a very popular concept nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And that concept is obviously about the realization that things don't just stop with the port and the terminal. It's very much all of the stakeholders that we've been talking about.
Exactly.
So the shipping operators, the logistics operators, and bringing everyone together. And I think, I don't know how you feel about this, but it feels like it's finally a realization perhaps that we need to work more together.
Definitely. We've been talking about collaboration for ages, and we still mention it in each and every conference over and over, but it's about actually doing it, not just talking about it. And that's the difficulty.
So I think, nowadays, because there are so many opportunities available, if everyone shares in the conversation, almost, people can take away their share of that opportunity.
And it's very easy to start a new pilot project, but to scale it up is difficult. It's really easy to start a new initiative, but to get something tangible out of that initiative is very difficult.
Yeah, that's interesting then. So I'll ask you a question on that.
All right.
How do you feel that we can overcome that huge obstacle with scaling up some of these operations? What do you feel needs to happen?
What I think is two things. First of all, we need to look beyond the innovative projects and pilot projects, because today there's a tendency to focus on pilot projects, innovative solutions. We need to focus more on the scaling up and less on the new innovations, because there's always something new to innovate, but we can also use what we have today. The other part of it is funding. Today you can easily get funding for the new solutions and for the capex for building something. We also need to have some sort of funding, both on national and regional and global scale, also for the operational part, for the OPEX. Because today the price gap is becoming the new normal word to blame. It used to be the chicken and egg situation. Today we use the price gap. And that price gap needs to be closed, and it can only be closed with OPEX support, financial support from governments, really.
Yeah, okay. So it's almost as though we've kind of moved forward and we know what needs to be done, but we're kind of lagging behind in terms of the finance and the investment.
Exactly.
Is that right? Excellent stuff. Okay. So we're going to move the conversation a little bit to Gothenburg now. I'd like to know, some of the conversation that we've been having. I'd like to know more about the work that Gothenburg has been doing in relation to carving out your future role with the energy transition and some of the other activities that we've been talking about.
Well, we try to work in all different areas. So we have projects on both the land side and the sea side. If we look at the land side, we have, for instance, a project called TransZero. We work together with Volvo and Scania, trying to put fossil-free electric trucks on the road, together with the entire transport value chain. We also work on the seaside with green corridors. We have a green corridor to Rotterdam, and we have a green corridor to Ghent and Zeebrugge in Belgium. And we try in those corridors not just to switch the fuel on the vessels, but to get all the little bits and pieces in place. That includes onshore power supply, electrified terminal equipment. We need to have electrified railway in both ends. We need to have electrified trucks in both ends. And we're starting to get there. We have ticked all the little boxes for all of these things, except for the actual fuel switch on board the vessels. And that is what we need to do now. That cannot be done without some sort of financial support for the OPEX, which brings us back really to the Clydebank Declaration and the original idea of the Green Corridors concept.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where the obstacle obviously still lies.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. You're looking at the overall kind of operation, if you like, going from the shippers right the way through to,
Indeed.
you know, the port itself and then the supply chain as well. It's quite interesting. That's where
I think everyone's trying to take a larger grip, and we see actually the same thing also from the cargo owners and the ship owners. They're also trying to sort of widen their scope. So that's done from all different actors at the same time, and I think as ports we can be at the center of that.
drivers for change.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with all of your work on the green corridors that we've been talking about, the your fuel infrastructure and the energy transition, where does Gothenburg see itself? Maybe asking about 2050 is a little bit too far ahead, but I mean into the future, so the medium term, and then beyond 2050. And what's the environmental strategy, if you like, that you feel needs to take place, and what are you following in order to achieve your objectives?
It's really continuing the work that we've done for a long time. We started the work to become a sustainable port many years ago, and we've been striving to that for ages. What we need to do is all the little bits and pieces, tick all the little boxes, and try to move forward on everything at the same time. We cannot just take one thing and focus on that. For a while we tried that on climate, but then we realized that we were missing out on air quality and everything else. So we need to do everything at the same time. It's about switching fuels, it's about electrifying, it's about making sure that we have a symbiosis with the nature around us as well.
Absolutely. And am I right in saying that quite often, you know, if you look at the whole and overall approach, when you make one change, it's impacting, the whole thing is impacting on another.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. We need to make sure that we're not running into traps like we did with various technologies that we've seen were initially a good solution, but along the way have turned out to be probably an issue and a problem. For instance, scrubbers, where we saw initially that we had to allow them, and then we saw that they actually diminished the quality of the water within the port, and the port decided to actually ban it. And we've then seen that Sweden felt forced to ban it on a national level, and a lot of countries within OSPAR has decided to ban it now on a regional level. It's just very unfortunate, because the way we go back and forth in what technology is actually determined to be the best creates an uncertainty, and the uncertainty is the worst part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Very expensive as well, isn't it?
True.
I mean, following a path that perhaps could be a bit
Exactly.
tearing.
And that's why we're aiming for clear regulations on the highest possible level.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a balance to be had, isn't it? It's gaining input from the ports, the terminals, the whole supply chain.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then, you know, and then hopefully that gets listened to.
We hope so.
Put into place. That
Definitely,
absolutely
definitely.
makes sense. So I think, you know, in a nutshell, I'd like to know what your presentation at GreenPort Congress is going to be talking about. Edvard, I'd like to...
We're going to have a panel discussion between some of us discussing of the challenges and possibilities that we see going into the future, 2050.
Excellent.
What can ports actually do, and where do we want to be? So it's going to be a very interesting discussion.
It's going to be a really interesting discussion, and I wonder if there's going to be, perhaps it's going to be one issue centric, or if we're going to be looking at the whole and overall.
I think we might have a tendency to fall back to electrification. We might have a tendency to fall back to electrification and the switch to new fuels. And of course, the theme of this conference is very much towards onshore power supply, so electrification on a larger scale as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But hopefully bringing everything together as a complete picture.
Exactly. We need to actually be able to have more than one ball in the air at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Why is it important for you, Edvard, to actually be at the Congress this year and fly the flag for Gothenburg, come along and talk about the work that you're doing? How important do you feel that the Congress is in bringing people together and discussing these issues and ironing out some of the obstacles that we're all facing?
I think it's really important, because we see that we need to keep on track, and we need to keep on top of things, and we need to know what the latest is. And there's a need for us as ports to meet also on the working level between the actual environmental managers, to learn from each other and discuss things. So it's definitely important, and this is actually my 8th GreenPort Congress in a row, so we definitely see it as an important one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about taking those lessons that are being learned and then looking at how far we've come Because I think sometimes we have a tendency not to do that, don't we?
We have a tendency to fall back and do what we always do, but we need to also feel a little bit seeing forward, innovative solution, look into the future, what's the next step, so that we continue to actually move forward.